Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's lecture on the second part of the affairs of the Falcons. In this part, we see more of the dynamics around race, class within the family. In this part, we get more of the background story to how Lucho and Ana's relationship developed, where she had been dating his brother when they met. She becomes pregnant and they decide to marry. Because she'd been dating the brother and because of her class and race, she's perceived by Valeria and Lucho's mother as having taken advantage of Lucho and Carlos, that her interest was in getting one of them to get her pregnant and forcing herself into the family. And so we see sort of these dynamics affecting her relationship with Valeria. And why she is considered suspicious by Valeria, who accuses her of sleeping with her husband, and how Ana feels she must either prove them wrong or stay away from the family's judgmental eyes. We also see how home and belonging are attached for Ana in this particular apartment, and her fascination with Unit 4D in the Lexar Towers. How she consistently notices the attributes of the building and the apartment that she likes. She makes an attempt to create a sense of home for herself in this apartment that doesn't belong to her. As we see it in the New Year's party where she cooks, decorates, invites her friends, as if she owned the apartment, and she's always being called out by Valeria and Lucho about how she acts as if the apartment was hers. And so the apartment seems to represent the kind of home she wants to strive for in the United States. There's a sense of stability and safety about it that she craves. We also see the connection between immigration and parenting, particularly during the New Year's Eve party. We see how Ernesto and Carla, who had left their children behind in Peru with Betty as their caretaker, when they come to the United States, they are struggling to parent their children, which they had recently reunited with in the US. Ernesto believes he has to parent his son out of potentially becoming gay because, as he says, I don't want my kid blown up because some asshole thinks he's a degenerate. He's still in the mentality of having to protect his children from the revolutionary terrorists that instilled this kind of fear in Peru. So his approach to parenting is still very much impacted by their past in Peru. At the same time, we see Betty's perspective of how the children suffered while they were away in Peru, where their parents forgot one of the children's birthdays. This distance creates a strain in the relationship between parents and their children that continues to impact the relationship once they are reunited. We can understand then why Ana is so dead set against sending her children back to Peru. The novel also demonstrates the complexities around reproductive health for undocumented women. They must either rely on underground connections, such as Letty in the pharmacy, in order to get pills that she needs, as when Ana takes pills in order to try to abort her pregnancy, but also how she's expected to take care of it when the pills fail, and she now has to go get an abortion. And so we really see how dealing with an unwanted pregnancy is complicated by her undocumented status. Yet at the same time, there's this expectation from Lucho when he finds out that she's pregnant, that it's her responsibility to figure out how to, quote unquote, fix it, right? That she has to find the clinic herself, figure out how to pay for it, and consider the potential risks around her immigration status should she go to such a clinic. I apologize if you're hearing noise in the background. That's my dog keeping himself busy with his favorite little ball, but it's the only way I can keep him semi-quiet during these recordings. We also see in this part of the novel the connections between work and poverty. Ana and Lucho's arguments over money continue in the second half. Lucho is constantly noting how little money they earn and how much money they always need just to make ends meet. Yet he still insists on sending money to his mother in Peru. Well, Ana sees the opportunities for work that exist here that she believes wouldn't exist for her in Peru. She also adds to the financial strain, however, by insisting that the children attend a Catholic school for which they need to pay a tuition. For Lucho, the financial constraints feel like a loss of class status compared to the status he would have in Peru as a university-educated man. For Ana, poverty isn't foreign to her and is able to see the opportunities for work and for better opportunities for her children in the US. So he sees himself, he focuses on the opportunities for himself, whereas Ana tends to see opportunities for her children's future. Ana is also able to imagine herself as financially independent in the US if it's absolutely necessary or if Lucho decides to leave her. So she has a plan B in the back of her mind of how she might take care of herself financially. And she also has a dream here of opening a restaurant, something that she also feels would not be achievable for her in Peru. Now, in this part, we also see more around Valeria and get to understand her a little bit more. On the one hand, she loves to lord over others her race, class, and immigrant status as things that are supposed to make her superior to Ana and others like her. Yet she's incredibly miserable, as we see through her constant drinking. Her husband is unfaithful and has a second family. He finds solace in talking with Ana about things he can't to his wife. Although she believes herself to be superior to Ana, she's at the same time threatened by her, always suspicious that Ana is going to take her husband away from her, as she already tends to see her as someone who takes men away, as she sees her through the way she's taking her cousins. Perhaps her fear is realizing that in the US, her class and race privilege don't mean much and that she's not really that different from Ana in the race and class spectrums of the United States. After an argument where it becomes clear that Lucho knew about Don Beto and Ana's relationship, Ana comes to the realization, quote, that if she'd only trusted, if she'd had some faith in him, meaning Lucho, things might have been so different. And so during this argument, Lucho tells Ana that she's never fully trusted him, that she never went to him with her problems. She'd assumed that the only reason he'd married her was out of a sense of responsibility when she'd gotten pregnant. But now she realizes that Lucho loved her and the children and wanted to be with them. Yet at the same time, there are moments where Lucho makes her clear that he prefers not knowing what Ana does to get the money or to make sure she doesn't get pregnant. These to him are women matters. So it is possible that she could have, is it possible that she could ever have actually believed that she could trust him, right? There seems to be sort of this contradiction here between what he's now telling her and demonstrating to her versus all the other kinds of things that he's been communicating to her about what she could or could not trust him with. We, of course, see here the threat of deportation, right? The prevalence of this threat of being caught by immigration and being deported. Ana is hyper aware of this persistent threat, so much so that she maps out her escape route should a raid take place at work. We see her constantly sort of scanning the space, looking for that back door. Is there anything covering that door that might prevent her from getting out? But we see Valeria also using Ana's status as a quote-unquote illegal to threaten her, and finally calls the police on her, accusing her of stealing a bracelet she lent her and insisting that the police officers take her away. The level of fear and panic that is experienced by Ana and her children is really captured in detail by the author in this particular scene. Finally, the significance of this threat is seen at the end of the novel, when a raid does take place at work and Ana is running towards her escape route. The significance of the threat of deportation is that it undoes every other concern, every other pain, and every other sacrifice we see her make in order to survive in the US. This quote really captures what is meant by the term illegal and the impact it has on those who are undocumented and their children. In particular, it speaks to undocumented motherhood and how the implications of that word alone undermines Anna's attempts at protecting her family. And the quote states, she'd heard it said so many times. She said it herself before without giving it much thought. She was undocumented. And isn't that what the word meant anyway? Illegally in the country because they didn't have permission to be there in the first place. They didn't have the paperwork. They didn't really belong. But it was different this time. It was a realization that she couldn't protect her children, not even from a mere word. She couldn't shield them from either its implications or its consequences. They were deportable, discardable. And this is certainly how she feels when Valeria is threatening her to deport her and telling these police officers she's illegal, her children are illegal, you need to take her away. It really makes very prevalent to her in that moment how vulnerable her undocumented status makes her and her children, regardless of everything else we've seen her throughout the novel trying to do to protect her children, to be able to remain as a family together, and more importantly, to be able to remain in the United States. So herein ends the lecture for this week. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on the second part of the novel. In the discussion post, I asked particularly about the character of Mama, which we haven't talked about in the lectures, but we really see her develop a little bit more in this part of the novel. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts about her and other things that I've discussed in this lecture, or other things that I haven't discussed that came to mind or that you noticed in the second part of the novel. Have a great week.